Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So I got this big mold, like it's huge, and this is from GetMoldi Molds, and by the way, I love that name. I think it's freaking hilarious. So I am really excited to do this week's video, but I'm also really nervous because we're going to be doing kind of like a deep pour for this gigantic mold. It's huge. It's a big square. It's real thick, so it's definitely going to be a deep pouring mold, but I'm really excited because we're going to put some flowers in this thing. So if you guys are interested in seeing what I can do with this huge square mold, then continue watching. So I don't know about you guys, but I have seen a lot of flowers and wedding bouquets go into molds like this, so I'm really excited to use it. It's one of those molds. It's also very windy. So like I was saying, it's one of those molds that kind of comes apart with these screws. So you can like take off the screws and all the pieces come apart. I have never used a mold like this. I've only really ever used silicone molds, so I'm excited to see the resin kind of pop off of this because I don't know if you can hear that, but it's a plastic kind of material. So I don't know. I'm excited to see resin kind of come out of a mold like this. I'm also excited because I have in a box labeled video, because that's how professional I am, video. I have some dried flowers and they're like full flowers. I didn't flatten them, which is my favorite way to dry them. If you're wondering, I did dry them in silica gel. I do have a whole separate video about how I dry flowers in silica gel. Actually, I should probably do a whole updated video on how I dry flowers in silica gel, because I think the only video I have on it is me trying it out for the first time. So I've definitely used it a lot more since that first video. So I'll probably do an updated one soon. But for these flowers, I did dry them in silica gel. And for the sake of how long this is already going to be for filling up this mold, I don't want this video to be super long. So I'm not going to show you guys how I dried them in silica gel. I am going to have to do it in multiple pours just because resin gets really hot and that's how it cures. So if we do it all in one pour, it's just going to get way too hot and it's going to probably burn the mold and like stick to it. It's going to burn the flowers like absolutely. So I definitely have to do it in multiple layers. I'm thinking the very back layer, I want to do black. I know in the, what video was that? The moon ring holder video. I did a solid black with flowers kind of piece. It was so pretty. So I definitely want to do a solid black background for this piece. And then, you know, because fall is coming around, I'm so excited for fall, you guys. I'm so excited. I thought we could do some like orangey flowers and kind of like make a fall kind of inspired piece. So I'm going to get started. I'm mixing up some resin. I'm probably going to do casting resin since that's kind of like the best one for flowers. Probably color it solid black without any glitter. I know it's kind of like weird for me. But then we're going to color it black and then pour it right in. It's just going to be the very first layer. I'm not going to do much just because I feel like this is a big mold and I definitely don't want to get it too hot. Hey guys, so I just kind of wanted to walk you guys through this project because it's a little more involved. So I'm just kind of, you know, pouring out part A and part B into the cup, equal parts. I am using casting resin and I'm using like my silicone mixing sticks, and we're just going to mix that up until it's clear and there's no like separation lines. I did go in and for this first layer, I am coloring it solid black with a color from CounterCultureDIY called Iron Frost. So I just pour like a little bit of that, a few drops, and then I mix it up until there's no separation lines and it's fully incorporated. Okay, so now I'm going to pour it in. I did mix up way too much at first. I think I mixed up like 3 cups. Don't worry, I didn't waste the rest of it, but I did end up using 1.5 cups, and that's basically what I did for each layer. So each layer was 1.5 cups of resin, besides like the last layer, which I did 2 cups. So when I work with flowers, I usually do it in many different layers, especially when it's a really thick piece like this, because I don't want it to get too hot. And I let it cure for around 5 hours. You don't have to let it cure fully, just enough so that it kind of like holds on to anything that you're putting in there. So after I pour the resin in, I do let it sit for a few minutes so that the bubbles will kind of rise and, you know, like gather in the center. And then I'll use my heat gun, which I wasn't sure if I could use my torch on this mold or not, so I didn't end up using it just in case. So I did go in with my heat gun, and then I took my flowers. So this part is a lot. So I did have these flowers pre-dried, like I said at the beginning of this video. I am taking them now and just kind of like placing them in where I wanted them. I did kind of like, before I started this, I had taken a picture of a like design and how I wanted it to kind of be laid out in there. So I like basically pre-designed this, took a picture of it, and then I followed it. Like, you know, I looked at the picture and then I would kind of like recreate it with the resin. So that really helped if you're gonna do like a fully, you know, floral design in a piece like this. It does really help to kind of design it beforehand. That way when you're making it, you know what you're going to be doing, how you want it all to be laid out, and you can kind of just like reference the picture. So once I've placed all my flowers and they're where I want them to be, I do have a little bit of reserved resin at the end. So I do mix up 1.5 cups of resin, and then I pour most of it in, but I will reserve a little bit for this part. And I'll just kind of like pour a little bit in the very pocket of the rose and kind of like get a little bit of a layer on everything else. I did go in with a little bit of like these like little blue, I actually forget what they're called, but they're these little blue like dried out berry things that I had, and sprinkled those around. Those ended up disappearing because they were like a really dark blue against a black background, but we'll fix that at the end, you'll see. But this is kind of how it looks. It's got a little bit of a layer of resin on everything. Okay, so we are 2 layers in so far. We've got the black layer, which is going to be the very back of the piece, and now I've just gone in with a clear layer, and then I put the flowers in. I did reserve a little bit of resin to pour into like the very center of the rose, and then I poured some on top of the other flowers as well, just because I want to get a good grip on these flowers and I don't want them to float. Since they are like full flowers, it is easier for them to have a lot of bubbles and to float to the top. So I want to get a good grip on them, and that is also why I let it cure before I go in with more layers. After I did the very first layer, the black layer, I let that cure for around 5 hours, and then I came back and did the clear layer that you just saw. So that is where we're at. I'm in love with it already. I think that it's going to be so pretty. What do you think? Oh, you haven't even looked at it yet, right? No.
That's amazing.
It's gonna be so like, it's gonna be so fall-y and spooky kind of, but like floral. Oh.
It's so Halloween-y.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I'm excited to pop it out, which will be in like 10 years because this is gonna take a lot of layers for me to do.
It'll be Halloween. You should pop it out.
So since my bun is like melting off of my head now, I'm gonna see you guys in 24 hours. And then we'll do another layer. The rest of the layers are all going to be clear. I'm actually not going to do glitter.
Wow.
I know. I just feel like everything in there kind of speaks for itself.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. I agree.
I will see you guys tomorrow. So this is the next day, and it's the 3rd layer, and this is just a clear layer of casting resin. So there's nothing special in this one. It's just clear casting resin that I poured in. So So now it's 5 hours later, and this is the 4th layer. This is just clear casting resin that I've mixed up again. Again, this is 1.5 cups. And this layer, I did add in a few like white chamomile flowers right in that space where I had added, you know, those like little blueberry things, because they did get lost with the black background. So I did add in these little white flowers to kind of just give it a little more dimension. So now we're on the next day, and this is the 5th layer. Again, same as the last few layers, I did mix up 1.5 cups of casting resin, and this is just like a clear layer. I didn't add anything else to it, but I did want to show you guys this trick that I do. Is I'll mix up my resin and then leave it in the cup and let it sit for a few minutes so that the bubbles will kind of rise in the cup, and then I'll take my heat gun and kind of like, you know, pop the bubbles with my heat gun in the cup before I pour it into the mold and onto the flowers, because I feel like that really helps kind of minimize the amount of bubbles that are in that like make it into the piece. Okay, now we're 5 hours later and we're on the 6th layer. It's just like, this was so many layers, you guys. But I did want to get some like cool shots. Sean was with me at the design house, so I thought like we could get some cool shots of pouring the resin in. It just looks so beautiful, so glossy and gloppy. I love it. So I hope you guys enjoy these cool shots of pouring resin in. Okay, so now we're on the next day. This is the 7th layer of resin, and this is kind of where I goofed a little bit. I did get a little bit impatient, you know, as you do on the 7th layer of a piece. So I tried to mix up a resin that was a little bit more faster curing and that cures harder, because I wanted the very front of the piece to be hard. Casting resin does kind of cure a little bit soft. So I did try to use a faster curing resin. I did end up using the thin viscosity artist resin. So now we're 5 hours later, 8th and final layer. The last 2 layers, the 7th and 8th layer, I did use the same resin, which was the thin viscosity artist resin from CounterCultureDIY. I really wish I hadn't used this resin, because in the 7th layer, I mixed up 2 cups of it because, like I said, I was getting impatient. And I just really wish I hadn't done that. It got too hot, and it did kind of like do that little bubbly texture, which is my fault. I mixed up too much of it. It got too hot. It didn't damage anything, so it's totally fine. But it was kind of bubbly. Like I said with this mold earlier, I wasn't sure if I could use a torch on it or not. So I did end up using a heat gun, which doesn't get as many of the bubbles out as a torch does. So I don't know. I wish I hadn't been so impatient with it. Okay, we're ready to pop this out. It's literally been forever. It's 8 layers, and I've enlisted the help of Ricky. Ah. Okay, so we watched a video on how to pop this out because it didn't really say on the directions. It gave me these 2 like little cube things. I had no idea how to use them until Ricky pulled up a video on their website of how to pop it out. So we're gonna get started. I am gonna like change up the angle so you guys can see this thing better, and we can like kind of show you how we unscrew all of the things. I'm gonna switch up the angle now so you guys can see what happens. I'm kind of afraid that this isn't gonna come apart.
It's gonna work. It's gonna work. We watched the video.
Yeah, but his piece was so much smaller.
Yours is just like 6 times bigger. It's not a big deal. It's gonna work.
So while we're unscrewing everything on this mold, I did kind of want to talk to you guys about this mold a little bit. You guys, I could not believe this mold. I loved it. I wasn't sure if I was gonna love it because I'm so used to using silicone molds. I've never used a mold like this, and honestly I was really afraid that I had resined this gigantic piece to this mold. And I mean, I'm not going to spoil anything for you because I want you to experience us kind of like popping it off for the first time, but I loved this mold. It did leak a little bit, but I think that's my fault because I was looking at the directions later, and it does say that to kind of like check the edges and the cracks, and if you can see any light through it or if you can see any like full cracks in there, then you're supposed to take it all apart and put it together again, and make sure everything is really tight. And I just kind of like, when I got it, I was so excited to have it that I just kind of jumped in without checking all that stuff. So I do think that the leaking is my fault, but oh my god, you guys, look at this. Like, I couldn't believe. So once you've unscrewed everything, you're supposed to flip it over and take like a hammer and kind of like hit it like I just did. I'm going to do it again here. You just hit it and it comes right off. I was so surprised. I was just, you know, coming from silicone molds, it's really like, I don't know, I really thought I had resined this piece to this mold, but I didn't, and it's coming off. It was actually super fun to kind of hit the little pieces off of the piece, and then you're supposed to take like the little cubes and screw them back onto the side so that you can get the bottom off. You guys, when the bottom came off, I couldn't believe it. I love this mold so much. And by the way, this mold is from GetMoldi. I will put all the links down in the description, their Instagram and their website, if you want to go find them. Ooh, it's pretty with like the ring light and stuff to like see it fully popped out.
Like all those layers, that is...
Eight layers. I mean, including this day, it's been 5 days, and there's 11.25 cups of resin in this thing. I do want to weigh it. I'll probably put on screen how heavy this thing is, but yeah, there's like 90 ounces of resin in this. I wrote down
the whole recipe of
literally everything. I'm obviously going to give you guys some close-up clips of this thing so you guys can see it up close and personal in the sunlight and stuff. Yeah, if you threw this at somebody, it could definitely knock them out.
Oh, easy. Like, this
take them all the way down.
This is kind of scary. I'll stop doing that. I'm sure like people are like, why is he throwing it up in the air?
But yeah, I was going for like Halloween, kind of like fall, spooky, floral. What do we think? Do you think I like hit the mark? As a retired florist, what do you think of it? Like as it's arranged and stuff.
I mean, I think it looks awesome. Like I said, I love how there's like all the layers in it. It's so cool. And you literally have like the full rose head. Like you can see on the side there. Like that's so cool.
The last couple of layers, I did like that thin viscosity resin, and I wish I didn't do that because that's what made it bubbly. So be patient and don't go with a faster, because I was trying to use a faster curing resin to just get it over with.
Because you were already in like day 4 or 5, so it's just like, we need this done.
I should have just kept doing casting resin. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. Let me know what you think of this gigantic piece. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already, and follow me on Instagram. It is at Artsymadwoman. I'll put it right over his face. And I will see you guys in the next video. Oh my God, I love you so much. I almost forgot to say that. And I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye. And some flowers, then continue. What? What was that? Actually, I should probably do all. So I will see you guys. I'm going to see you. He's not going to see. Well, I mean, maybe.
Bye-bye.
What? Oh my God. I feel like my bun is just like slowly melting off of my head. It's like a scoop of ice cream.
Yes.
Who is that girl I see? And greasy for it. My little wooden thing.
Did you break it? Did you break it? I mean, are you okay? For real this time. Are you ready?
Check out my OnlyFans.
Like one of my best friends. Is that okay to say?
Yeah, I think it's okay to say.
All right. Sorry. No, you're fine. I'm just bad at talking while other people are here. I'm gonna hold my cube. Ricky's sitting on, what is it? Like a box of drawers, basically. It's like just a bunch of drawers that are built in to each other. And he wanted me to let you know that.
Well, I mean, it would have been awkward because of the height difference. I mean, like, it's either this
Yeah, stand up.
Thanks so much for watching.
It almost doesn't even sound like it's genuine. But you guys.
You didn't tell me you were gonna. Hey guys, if you like this video, make sure to click the link. No.
I do have links, but like.
But like where? I don't even know. I'm just. There's a link somewhere. There's a link to do something.
We did it!
Yes!